Hi, this is Runa, and you're listening to the Changemakers podcast, where we share tips, insight, tools, and stories from other changemakers designed to motivate you to become the change you want to see in your world. Make sure you join our Changemakers community at runamagnus.com/podcast. And now, this is your time to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hello there, it's Runa here from my desk in Iceland, and absolutely thrilled introducing you to a very dear friend of mine, Chris Attwood. I have a very special relationship with Chris. For me, Chris is the man that basically really helped my nation, Iceland, back in 2009 after the economic crash. He and Janet Attwood, his ex-wife and business partner, came to Iceland, and they helped us as a nation that was totally lost in all the troubles that we were in at the time. And he really helped us get our thoughts together and connect again with our hearts to figure out where our passions were. For me, when I go back in my mind to those autumn days when we were setting up the passion test for Icelanders, I get goosebumps because I really feel that was one major step in the process of rebuilding the country that I love so dearly. So thank you, Chris, for being a guest in the Changemakers podcast today, because you are a wonderful person with such a big heart. And just to tell you another thing about Chris, because before I go into the questions, I mean, we're talking about a best-selling author. I don't know how many books, to be honest. I think there are probably, you made the list, New York Times list 4 or 5 times, haven't you?
Actually, New York Times only twice.
Only twice. Okay, well, only twice.
6 or 8 books.
Yeah, and I read them all, and I love them all, and they're going to be on our show notes, which you would. And not only what he can do, but his vision and what he is doing in the world, changing the world, is so phenomenal. I had to get him on the podcast to share with them what his latest magic is all about, and what are the things that we need to do to step up our own game and become the change that we want to see. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much, Runa. And thank you also for allowing me and Janet to be part of that massive transformation that Iceland was in the midst of after the crash. And it was really a very special, wonderful, amazing experience. And it really showed me how important it is. We've been teaching it for years, but it really was a great dramatic example of how important it is for each of us to connect with our hearts, with our passions, to really begin to live life in the flow of evolution, which is that ancient Sanskrit term I like to use these days called Dharma. And so it was such a great gift that you gave Janet and me to be able to participate in the recovery that Iceland was going through, and in that national conversation that Icelanders were having at that time. Thank you.
Well, we are forever grateful for what you came up with and how you helped us. And you mentioned something, that word Dharma. Mm-hmm. What does, I mean, I'm very aligned with, and I think most people are aligned with what passion means in having the fire in your belly and all of that. But what is a Dharma? Tell me.
Dharma, yeah, it's a great ancient word. I love it. And as you know, Runa, that Janet and I for years have been teaching what I know is true, which is that your passions are the things that you love, that you care about most, that light you up, that are in fact the clues, the breadcrumbs to discovering your purpose, your destiny in life. And that it's not an accident that you love the things you love. It's not an accident that you care about the things you care about. Those things were put in you even before you were born. They're embedded into your very nature. And that's why they lead you on to feeling purposeful. When your life is aligned with the things you love and care about, then your life feels purposeful. It feels meaningful. And as you have heard us say so many times, that every single one of us is born with a unique gift, a unique purpose in life that only we can fulfill. No one else can fulfill that purpose. And in the ancient literature, the most ancient literature on the face of the planet, this word dharma, which is often translated as duty, but what I think is a better understanding in English is that dharma is that force of evolution that drives each of us to seek meaning and purpose in our lives. And so passion is a part of that, and doing what you love is a part of that. But dharma is really being aligned with the flow, the very fundamental flow of life that is moving everything and everyone in this entire creation, this entire thing we call life, onto more and more evolved states, but more and more aware, awake states of life, so that we're able to perceive more, are able to do more, are able to enjoy more. And so passion and purpose are really core. They're part of that thing, that flow. And again, Runa, you've heard Janet and me say so many times that while every single one of us is born with a unique purpose, there's one common purpose that we all share. And that ties into the theme of this podcast, which is that we're all born to serve. Our unique purpose, our unique reason for being alive is so that we can be of service in our unique and special way, using our passions and our talents, those natural gifts that we've been given, combining those in a way that provides value to others, creates change, positive, constructive change in our lives and the lives of others. That's what Dharma is all about. That's what this force of evolution is pushing each of us to do. And when we're not aligned with that, then we get miserable and unhappy, and life feels like it's worthless, and we feel like we're worthless, and all of that. It's so great, Runa, as you know, it's so easy to flip the switch and change that whole experience of life.
Yeah, and it is one of those things, I agree with you. It's one of those things that are easy when you know how.
That's right. That's the key. It's easy when you know how, and when you don't know how, it's like the worst thing on the whole planet.
Yeah, and that's where I often feel, that's where we go into when we feel we're isolated, we're alone. There is no one that understands us, that we're fearful of the things that are around us. So, and me and the change makers, we've had actually quite a lot of really interesting conversations about this, and I would love to hear your insights on that. One of the things that we've discovered in our search for how can we serve humans to become the change that they want to see in their world, we've come to see that so many of us are trapped into boxes. Either that we've put ourselves into box for some reason, and then that box is no longer serving us up to a certain point, or we are forced into boxes. I mean, and now I'm thinking of, just think about gender or race or religion, all these boxes. What are your take on that when and thinking of being in your flow and following your Dharma?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing because, as you know, Runa, I have 3 young children, now 10, 7, and 4. And for any parent, when you see your child firstborn, this newborn baby, that it's just this kind of little person, but they can't really see, they can't really smell, they're just kind of going, There's kind of 2 states. There's on and off, it's comfortable and uncomfortable. That's really, I'm either comfortable, or I'm uncomfortable. And that's really, the baby only has that way to communicate. But then as the baby gets a little older, a few months go by and they begin to see and their senses begin to develop. And from that in that process, every single one of us gets conditioned to experience life through our senses. We think that what we experience with our senses is reality, and so we think I'm separate from the world around me. I'm different. I'm not like everyone else. That there's people that can hurt me and people that can help me, and there's all these concepts of duality that get created because of this mechanism of experience that we're grown into. And it takes a while for any one of us to really develop and begin to notice that there's something beyond the senses which is even more valuable, more powerful, more important than what we can experience with these five senses. Some people don't really move out of that, even as adults. What they value is the things they can see or taste or smell. I need more money because it can allow me to buy more things. And they think that somehow buying and getting is going to make them happy. And of course it doesn't. But it's really being stuck in this kind of sensory model of experience. Mm-hmm. And then as people develop a little bit more, then life becomes a little bit more transactional. They go to a little bit deeper level. But now it's about, what can you do for me, right? That I'll help you if you help me, right? I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back. And that's a little bit deeper level, a little bit deeper understanding. I now know that there are some things that are worth doing, even if they may not feel good in the short term, but they're going to get me a better outcome in the long term, that. Yep. But still, it's a kind of transactional relationship with reality. Then there's a deeper level that many people, I would say, still go to a deeper level, and they realize, well, there are certain things which are worth doing no matter what I get or don't get out of them, And of course, this, I think, is the basis of your podcast, is that there's certain things that I'm willing to commit myself to, that I'm willing to stand up for, regardless of what it means or doesn't mean for me. And this I call, principle-based living. That I discover that things like love or integrity or contribution, that these things are really, really valuable, even though I can't see, touch, taste, smell, feel them with my skin, so to speak. So they go beyond sensory experience, and I see that those things are valuable. And yet there's an even deeper level that more and more people are waking up to in this day and age than I think ever before in thousands of years, and yet still is more rare than I would hope it would be.
Yeah.
And that is to go beyond principles, beyond values, beyond this experience of good and bad, beyond the experience of this kind of dualistic nature of life that we've grown up with as we experience life through our senses, and coming to realize that there's an aspect of life which is beyond good and bad, which is beyond even these precious principles that we've come to value of love and integrity and contribution and others things. And that is this level of the infinite, this level of our own consciousness, our own ability to have experience, to be conscious of things, but even to step beyond the consciousness of something, to experience consciousness in its pure state, consciousness, awareness itself. And this, of course, is the value through things like meditation and prayer and so forth, even things like going and viewing a beautiful sunset or an amazing piece of art, which take us to an experience of awe, which goes beyond those experiences of this and that to an experience of somehow a connection to the totality of life. And this is really my passion these days, Runa. It's been my passion, as you know, I think for more than 45 years. I've had a long time meditation practice. I spent 10 years in meditating for 8 to 10 hours a day, studying the ancient literature of India, really going into who are we, who am I, why am I here, what's this life all about? And it's very encouraging to me that these days more and more people are recognizing the importance of value of this connection to that inner intelligence, that deep, infinite intelligence that is organizing this whole amazing life, and recognizing that when I connect with that, and I means any of us, when I connect with that somehow life begins to glow, if you will. Life becomes better. Different aspects of my life begin to improve in ways that I can't necessarily always put my finger on, and yet that life becomes brighter, There becomes, you could say, more light that comes into my life as a result of these inner experiences that go even beyond description, beyond my ability to use words to describe them. And so then I fall back on the words of the wise throughout the ages, who have described these experiences. And as this experience of that infinite intelligence and creativity that organizes and makes possible all the infinite variety of our creation, keeps the stars in the sky and the planets revolving around the sun, and keeps our life continuing to evolve. And the fact, what a miracle it is that we can live, for whatever, 60, 80, 90, 100 years, if we're lucky, on this planet, and all the changes that we go through. And at the same time, there's something that remains the same inside it. And so it's this connection that I believe is the greatest change that's happening in the world today, from my perspective, Runa, is this, that there's more and more people who are connected to this level of creativity and intelligence that is beyond the mind, and connects us with the wholeness of life. And I'm just going to mention, I hope it's all right if I mention another podcast, but he's someone that you might want to interview sometime as well, Runa, and I'm happy to make an introduction. I have a dear friend by the name of Rick Archer, who runs a podcast called Buddha at the Gas Pump.
Oh.
And Buddha at the Gas Pump, it's great. He's done like 450 interviews of people who've had these experiences of awakening, of waking up to that field of consciousness and awareness. And of course, that's different than your podcast, but I think it's complementary. That's why I mentioned it. That what I love about this podcast is that the Runa, in my experience, is all about how do you take that infinite intelligence and creativity that's at the base of each of us and bring it out into the world, to allow it to be expressed, to allow it to move in the world, so that we can see that change happening. And that, of course, is what makes life joyful. And that's really the fundamental of Dharma. Dharma is this connection from the field of infinite intelligence, infinite creativity, which has embedded within it this force of evolution that is moving us to discover more passion, more purpose, more meaning in our lives, always. And when we don't have it, we get frustrated and angry and upset and all of those things. Life just becomes more and more miserable. But when we connect with that, then we begin to feel, now I'm doing what I'm meant to do. Now I'm here for a purpose. And that is that force of Dharma. It's that, I talk about it as the flow of life. It's that very flow of life that's going on with or without us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But when we're aligned with it, then we're in the flow, and then it takes and carries us, just like when you go swimming in the river, and when you're swimming with the current of the river, then it just carries you along. Yeah. When you are going against the current of that river, then it's like struggling and we feel like we're drowning. Yeah. Guess what? No accident. That's in fact what we will do and do as long as we resist this flow of life. It's irresistible. It's infinitely powerful, and it will carry us one way or another, whether we go kicking and screaming or we go gently and with great delight as we begin to discover that purpose in our own lives unfolding naturally, and seeing the change it makes not only in us, but in everyone around us. Yeah. And you're a great example of it, Runa. I love this change and transformation that you've been going through in these last few years, and how you express that in your whole being, in your the light in your eyes, in the changes in your body, and the changes in your thinking, all of these things. You're just
Thank you.
Beautiful example. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I so resonate with what you're saying with that force and that flow. I sometimes try to explain to people when they look at me and say, what are you really doing? And I feel I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But literally, when you're saying what you're explaining, I can literally say, I felt like an invisible hand is on my back and just slowly taking me. And it's really about trusting that this is where I'm supposed to be. And just trusting that hand is just taking me. And I feel often like I'm just a vehicle. I'm just just a tool.
Well, that's the way it feels.
Yeah.
Really, that's a beautiful description, because when we're in that flow of life, when we're in the current of Dharma, then that's the way it flows. It feels like I'm just being used. I'm a vehicle. Maybe I'm riding in the boat, if you want to take the metaphor a little farther. I'm riding in the boat, the current's carrying me along. I'm just along for the ride,
Yeah.
And yet it's a ride that's so fulfilling, because somehow, as that hand pushes me along, then I notice that people around me are affected. People begin to discover that force, that flow for themselves. They begin to light up and realize that their life does have meaning. It does have purpose, that there is something there that's specific to them. And I think that's really, if people take any message away from this interview, Runa, this is the one I hope that they'll take, which is that if you're listening to this, you're listening to it for a reason. It's not an accident. It's that force of Dharma, force of evolution that's brought you here to listen. And you have a unique purpose. You have a unique role to play in the world that only you can fulfill. And the key to it is to really connect with what you love. And in fact, I know you're going to ask me, because you warned me, for some tips, but I want to give one very practical tip, and that is that if you're feeling that there's truth to this, and yet you're feeling not sure, how do I discover my passions? How do I get clear on that purpose? How do I get aligned with that flow? Then get a hold of Runa and have her take you through the passion test, because she's skilled, she's knowledgeable, she's a trained facilitator of the passion test, and it's the easiest, simplest way to get started on really understanding what you love, what you care about, and let her help you do it, and then from there, then begin to look at what are the things that come easily for you that seem to be hard for others. These are what we call talents.
Yeah.
Because every single one of us is born with certain gifts. And each of us, we take them for granted because they come so naturally to us. It's like falling off a log.
Yeah.
But if you notice people saying to you, gosh, wow, you did that so well. And they're very appreciative. And it seems as if it may not be that easy for them, then you have a talent in that area. Mm-hmm. And so the key to living in this flow of life is to take those things you love, the things you care about deeply, and then taking those talents, the things that are natural gifts for you, just as Runa is doing in her natural gift of communicating and connecting, right, through this. Take that and bring it together. Yeah. And then bring it together in a way that provides value to others. And when you can do that, then that's also a way to create income for yourself on a very practical level. Yeah. It's not only creating income, but it's creating income that's fun. It's fun for you because it's income that's generated by things you really believe in, things that you're passionate about, things that you're good at, and things that allow you to contribute in meaningful ways to other people's lives. And so, just to use a simple example, I know that Runa charges something to take people through the passion test, which is very appropriate. And yet she opens up through that. She opens people up to a whole layer of life that otherwise would be inaccessible. And so for anyone who's struggling with what do I do now, what better investment can you make than connect with someone who can help you really get clear on what is the reason that you're here? What is the purpose behind your life? What is the thing that will lead you on to be in that flow of life? There's no better investment that you can make. And so it becomes in itself this kind of flow, not just flow in some intellectual sense, but flow financially as well, because you make an investment in something like the passion test. Then what comes back to you is clarity. And then out of that clarity, now you're able to contribute to someone else. And they, in turn, when you provide value to them, they're happy to pay you for the value you provide. And now that flow continues. And so then you begin to,
yeah,
right? You
Yeah.
begin to see that flow moving through your life. And that also is Dharma. Dharma is not just an intellectual concept. It's a very practical thing about you want to make money. you want to do it ethically, with integrity, and in a way that actually makes a real contribution to other people's lives. Then Dharma is the path to that.
But Dharma is really a way to become a true, authentic change maker.
That's right. Exactly. Well put.
I love that. And with that, as much as I would like to continue our talk, I think our time is up. I'm filled with flow, love, and this core belief that what we're doing on this planet has a deep, deep meaning and a purpose. And thank you so much, Chris, for continuing to help humankind to be the best versions of themselves in any way, shapes, or form. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Runa. It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for allowing me to spend this time.
Was this podcast of value for you? I sure hope so. If so, feel free to share the love and give us your generous review on iTunes or Stitcher. And remember that you can always go to runamagnus.com to find out more about the Changemakers and how we can help you drive the change you want to see in your world.